Okay, so in today's video we're going to have a look at part 1 of the Reading and Use of English section of the Cambridge Proficiency exam, C2 level. I've done more videos on this in the past, so basically this is the multiple choice cloze where you have a short text, a single text with 8 gaps and 4 possible options for each gap, and there's 1 mark per correct answer. So let's just get on with it, I suppose.
For these raccoons, it's a chance to look for a seafood feast. The mother ventures forth with her kids. With the spring tide, they've come further down the beach.
Ah, there we are. Let me out. Funny joke, very funny joke. Okay, let's crack on. So England's breakfast revolution. Okay, so we've got the first one, 0, done for us. That's the example. England's breakfast revolution. The importance of a good breakfast is beyond dispute. Why can't it be beyond disagreement, beyond dissent, and beyond discord? Well, it's beyond dispute according to health experts. Just because that's the saying. No, we say that something is beyond dispute. It can no longer be discussed. There's no need for any further dispute or discussion surrounding this topic, according to health experts. But in historical terms, breakfast is a relatively new arrival in England, with descriptions of breakfast seldom in medieval literature. Okay, so seldom what in medieval literature? So the options we have here: displaying, manifesting, disclosing, or featuring. Well, descriptions. So first of all, display. I don't think display is an intransitive verb. No, so I don't think a description can display. Could it work in a passive sense? Could a description be displayed by someone? Maybe, but it really wouldn't be a very common way of using the word display. No, I don't think that would be right, even if it was in a passive sentence, and this is not. It says descriptions of breakfast seldom displaying in medieval literature. No, a description cannot display. No. Manifesting. Well, manifesting means to start showing, well, to show signs of existence, no? I suppose, something like that. So, descriptions of breakfast seldom manifesting in medieval literature, seldom showing, like, I mean, we talk about manifesting in terms of, like, illnesses, don't we? We start to talk about the symptoms that you might have. That is how the illness manifests itself. I don't know, you might say tuberculosis begins to manifest itself with shortness of breath or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but whatever. Coughing up blood maybe is another way in which tuberculosis begins to manifest itself. I don't think we talk about a description of breakfast seldom manifesting in medieval literature. It doesn't, again, it just doesn't sound right, does it? Descriptions of breakfast seldom disclosing in medieval literature. Well, I can disclose some information to people. It's like to reveal something. No, but again, I don't think it can be an intransitive verb. I don't think a description can disclose. No, that doesn't make sense. Featuring, I think, is the word. Yeah, featuring, appearing, basically. Seldom featuring in medieval literature. So basically, in medieval literature, descriptions of breakfast very rarely appear. They seldom feature in medieval literature. Okay, so we got past number 1. It's only taken me 4 minutes. Okay, I'll try and go a bit faster. 2. There are scattered references to travellers having a meal at dawn, before, on arduous journeys. Okay, this seems to contradict what they've just said in the previous sentence, no? So we're going to start this one with an adverb. And I think it should be an adverb that shows there's a sort of like a contradiction. There's sort of like a dissonance between the previous sentence and the current sentence. No? Because they've said that descriptions of breakfast seldom feature in medieval literature. Deservedly, there are scattered references to travellers having a meal at dawn. Deservedly? Why? Who deserves what? I don't think so. No, that would not show a contradiction. Admittedly, that sounds pretty good, yeah. Admittedly, there are scattered references to travellers having a meal at dawn. Yeah, that sounds good. Conceivably, it's like it's possible. Hypothetically, it could happen. I don't know. Doesn't sound right, does it? Doesn't sound right. Conceivably, there could be scattered references, we could say. But no, they're saying there are scattered references. They're admitting that there are. The writer is admitting there are some references to meals at dawn, to breakfasts. But they're scattered. There's not many of them. But yes, there are some. Assuredly. There definitely are. No, that's not. That, again, it's too much. Doesn't follow on from the previous sentence, does it? So, no, it has to be admittedly. There are scattered references to travels having a meal at dawn before on arduous journeys. So before going on arduous journeys. So engaging, you can't say engaging on. So grammatically that would be wrong. And anyway, you engage in an activity. You don't engage in a journey. No, you engage in a debate. So you engage in a fight. But no, I don't. You get involved in something. But no, that's wrong. Launching on. Maybe you could launch yourself into a journey. One could launch oneself into a project, into a journey, into a movement, into a discussion. I don't think you can before launching on an arduous journey. No, that's again just the collocation is wrong again. Before embarking on, yeah. Before embarking on an arduous journey, yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. Before committing, you don't commit on. Again, the collocation is wrong. You could commit to an arduous journey, I suppose, before committing to an arduous journey. But that doesn't even mean going, does it? That means just agreeing that you'll go. So committing to an arduous journey would be just to say, yes, okay, I will definitely go on the journey. But again, the collocation is wrong. So it's definitely embarking on. Having a meal at dawn before embarking on arduous journeys. And to the sick, sitting down to breakfast for medicinal reasons. But most people went without unless they were monarchs or nobles. So nobody really had breakfast except a few. There are a few medieval references to people before they went on long journeys. They might have a meal. No, monarchs, nobles, kings and queens. They might have breakfast, but other than that, nothing really. Okay. Let's move on. However, in the 16th century, it gradually became the not the exception. So it became the something, comma, not the exception. So the opposite to the exception. Yeah, okay. So again, this is kind of like collocation. What would you say is the contrary of the exception? We sometimes say the rule became the rule, not the exception. I don't know. Let's have a look at the options. The norm, that sounds pretty good. The norm, not the exception. Let's have a look at the opposites. The opposites at the other options. The norm, not the the prototype. No, the prototype is an early version of a future invention. So it's not the prototype. The standard, not the exception. Well, I think a lot of people would say the standard. They would get this wrong here and they would say the standard. But no, there's a difference here. So in 16th century, it gradually became standard to have breakfast would be a good sentence. But that article, the standard, kind of means like the level of achievement that is expected of someone. So, for example, there's an expression which means which is to set the standard. So, for example, I don't know, thinking about a sports team, you know, you got a football team and there's one person, one player who trains really hard and he's the one that sets the standard. The standard is the bar, no? The level at which you are expected to get to. Yeah. Became the norm. Standard became the norm, I think. Became the trait. No, it became a common trait, perhaps, but no, not the trait. There's not just one trait, no. Yeah, the opposite of the exception is the norm. Yeah, it became the norm, not the exception. Some writers have this to the greater availability of food. So I think what we're saying here is that some writers think that the fact that more food was available was the reason that people started having breakfast. So let's have a look at the options. Writers have attributed this to the greater availability of food. Yeah, I think so. They're attributing this happening to this cause. That sounds good. Let's have a look at the other options just in case. Have assigned this to the greater availability of food. Well, assign implies that you're making a decision. I don't think writers have decided that the greater availability of food, I'm going to decide that is historically the reason why there is more, there's a greater tendency to have breakfast. No, I don't think assign is right. No, you assign resources to people. I don't know, maybe in a hotel, you might assign, if you're the owner of the hotel or the manager or whatever, you assign this many rooms to this group of guests that are coming, I suppose. You're making a clear decision that goes there. These resources go to these people. It's not assigned. Accounted. I suppose this could be confusing. Somebody could say that, you could say that the greater availability of food accounted for the increase in people having breakfast. The greater availability of food is what accounts for more people having breakfast. But yeah, it doesn't work in this sentence. Writers have accounted this to the collocation is all wrong. No. Have accorded this to the greater availability of food. No, accord can mean agree, but it can also mean to give something to someone, normally like an honor or a title or something. So you kind of like a sign, but a bit more official, a bit more important. You can accord a nobiliary title to someone. I think something like that. Not right. No, it has to be attributed. Some writers have attributed this to the greater availability of food. Proponents of this view have not always considered other profound social changes. For example, new of employment. New figures of employment. We do talk about figures of employment, no, when we're looking at how many people are in work or how many people are unemployed, which is a bit of a sore topic at the moment. For example, new figures of employment well offer a plausible explanation for the greater importance now to breakfast. New figures of employment. New figures. I don't know. No, I think if you're trying to say there that more people working might make people, I don't know, eat breakfast more often. I don't know if that's quite right. New figures of employment, higher levels of employment maybe, or something like that. It just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right. New figures of employment. What are they? Greater figures? Lower figures? I don't know. No. New shapes of employment? I don't think we would say shapes of employment. No. new shapes of employment. Yeah, what shape does employment have? That doesn't sound right. Lines of employment. I mean, let's read on. I mean, lines of employment could be different kinds of employment. So maybe that's possible, but may well offer a plausible explanation for the greater importance now to breakfast, as individuals were increasingly employed for a prescribed number of hours. So they're talking about how long people were working. So it's not the figures of employment, I don't think. So it's not like how many people are working. Shapes of employment doesn't make sense. Lines of employment, I mean, I guess that's kind of like types of employment. But employed for a prescribed number of hours. I guess what they're saying there is that you have a change in the way we were working, the times in which we were working. So I think I'm going to I would go for patterns, new patterns of employment, because people were starting to do things in different ways. They're starting to start work all at a similar time. I suppose in the past, people would get up when the sun came up. No, with the sunrise, it was when they'd start working. So they wouldn't really be worrying about having breakfast. But once sort of the Industrial Revolution comes along, I guess people are starting work at the time that the factory doors open. So there's time to kind of plan ahead and get up, have breakfast, and then head to work. So I think its new patterns of employment may well offer a plausible explanation for the greater importance now. Linked, fixed, attached, secured. Yeah, the greater importance now put on breakfast. Linked to breakfast. I don't think linked. It's like people are seeing that there is a link between importance and breakfast. That doesn't make sense, I don't think. Fixed to breakfast. Fixed to breakfast. I don't think you say that. Attached to breakfast for me. You put the importance on breakfast. People attach importance to breakfast. Yeah, they say it's the most important meal of the day. Secured to breakfast again. No, this kind of sounds too physical rather than figurative. No, I think you attach importance to something, figuratively speaking. Yeah, now attached to breakfast. As individuals were increasingly employed for a prescribed number of hours, yeah, the patterns of employment were changing, so we attached more importance to having breakfast, I think. Okay. Often this involves starting work extremely early, thus having a meal first thing in the morning was embedded, rooted, entrenched, founded in necessity, and was no longer associated with social status alone. Right. Okay, so let's have a look at embedded and entrenched, because I think they're pretty much synonymous. So that's a good clue that neither of them are probably right. Something is embedded and something is entrenched. It's like deep inside you. It's a figurative way of saying, because obviously if you embed something, for example, if you're building a wall, you embed the stones in cement, maybe. No. Sometimes in sport, going back to sport, if two players crash together, or you sometimes embed your teeth in their head or in their leg or something. Very horrible. A bullet can get embedded in your bone or in your muscle if you get shot. Talking a lot about getting shot recently. I always use that example. I don't know why. Yeah, entrenched figuratively means the same thing, that something is deep within us. No, it's a tradition going back a long way. It's very culturally entrenched or embedded within us. that we do something. I don't think that's what we're saying here. Having a meal first thing in the morning was in necessity. Founded in necessity? Well, it wasn't founded. Having breakfast wasn't founded from this point on, I don't think. It had already been founded before this, you know. Nobles had it. Certain people did have breakfast, people who were ill, for example. But I think it was now coming from, it was now rooted in necessity, because people were starting to work extremely early. They needed to get up and have breakfast because they were starting early. They needed energy to get through the day, working long hours. And it was now rooted in, it was now coming from necessity, and was no longer associated with social status alone, which is where maybe you could say it was founded. So I think I would go with rooted there. Yeah. Well, there you go. We finished. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments section. Bye.